It's the 8th of January, 2025. Coming up on today's Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. The battle between the Order of the Dragon versus the Black Sun and the Trump operatives is once again in full swing. But can either side actually, quote, win? And the quest to take over space junk in old secret space program bases continues. Now Trump is pushing to take over Greenland. Again. Several people have shown up here by the helicopter load as the inauguration draws near, and no QFS was actually launched. Wow, it's the 8th of January, 2025. I almost said 2024 again. And there is a lot going on right now. Things are starting to really heat up, and I think we're not too far away from a conclusion here to this craziness. Maybe a couple more weeks of a little bit of turbulence, and then after that, hopefully everything will kind of flatline. We'll see. All right. Well, let's talk about what's going on in the world a little bit. And okay, let's start with the fires in California. So Biden showed up in California, I think it was today or in the last day or so, and declares a state of emergency and also a disaster declaration. Now, for those of you that don't know, let's talk about that first. A state of emergency in any state or any region or any area of the United States basically means that that property now belongs to the federal government. And although, you know, for the citizens of California, other than obviously a threat of fire and evacuation, everything is kind of normal. You still have your home, you know, you hopefully you still have your property, that kind of thing. The government does have the right, not saying they will, but they do have the right to seize your property or any land they so desire. They also have the ability to move in the National Guard in the state of California should things, quote unquote, escalate. Biden also promised a lot of help in federal aid to the state of California, which I have no idea where he's going to get that from. But all of this seems to be happening kind of in a hurry. And what I mean by that is, don't get me wrong, it's a very real situation for the people that live there. And the threat is very real. And the fires were, of course, not an accident. Yes, there are some high winds and whatnot in California at this time, but the setting of the fires was actually done on purpose, and it was done by some operatives. Things in California that are of great interest, let's just say, to the SSP. And what I mean by that is you have a lot of BLM land, Bureau of Land Management, which are, I should say, areas of California where there are large deposits of minerals. You know, they're always going for something, right? And on the one side of it, meaning the Trump operative side, they would like to leverage and lean everything that's in the state of California. On the other side of it, they would like to donate it to China, meaning the Democratic side of things. And neither one of them is going to be able to do either or. There is some controversy that the Trump operatives believe, which is there are areas near some of the fires, which lie mostly in and around the Mojave Desert, and they are allegedly not leaned by the Bureau of Land Management. Can't talk today for some reason. By the Bureau of Land Management, which is completely and totally false. That was leveraged a long time ago, and the off-the-record deals were done with Howard Hughes. So I know that they think they have a way to do this, but it won't be possible when they go to enter this stuff into the banking system for a number of reasons. So we are let's just say repeating past mistakes, or they are repeating past mistakes. Will there be any funding for the state of California? If there is, it will come from the state of California. There probably will be a promise of federal funding, which was supposed to be released today, as I hear, on the internet and in the back chatter going on in the government, meaning there was supposed to be a quantum financial system launched today again. And of course, there is no quantum financial system launched today. There are other people who are hoping they're successful in their visit to Durango, Colorado, which has not quite turned out that way. They've been flying in here repeatedly over the last several hours, about 24 hours now. We've had several groups show up here. We'll talk about that a little later in the report. But as far as the fires in California, we all remember what happened with Paradise, California. And I do know some that have lived in that area during the 2020 fire. And there's a lot of controversy about that. That is true. Those fires were set, and there's a lot of minerals there as well. And still, the town of Paradise, California there's been no repairs. There was no reparations for the people that lived there to this day. Very minimal, if any. The fires clearly were unnatural. There were so many indications of that at that time. And of course, that was during the former Trump administration. Everybody thinks that he's going to come back and all this money is going to come out and amazing things are going to happen. And that is clearly not the case before. So I'm just going by what happened in 2020. I know there's a lot of people out there that are hopeful, a lot of people, both behind the scenes and a lot of countries that are hoping that this is going to be a big change for America and American citizens and the world. But it just looks like much more of the same to me from what is actually happening. And there must be some kind of Kool-Aid that some of these people drank because I look at the facts. I have to look at exactly what happened. And I remember vividly what happened during Hurricane Michael. And I'm sure there are a lot of Floridians that do as well, still to this day, that are still suffering the consequences of that. And Paradise, California is no different. There are still people that are struggling, lost their properties, their homes, forced to leave the area so that they could allegedly mine, just like they did in the Carolinas most recently. And those people are still struggling. When Trump gets in, is there going to be a change to that? No. Well, it didn't change from 2020 on forward, so I'm not really sure what everybody's expecting, but I think we're going to have a lot of disappointed people in the near future. But as far as this disaster declaration, the deals are being cut with the Chinese behind the Trump operatives' back. The Trump operatives are the ones that set the fire, and they are intending on a windfall and an assignment of gold and minerals that are in California to the Treasury Department so that they can secure some fantasy currency. Again, same. There's a lot of attempts to crash the banking system. There are a lot of attempts to install Trump bucks and other currencies and cryptocurrencies and whatnot to the banking system over the last 24 hours. And nobody's really getting anywhere. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And let's start with the misconception that's going on between the dragon families or Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, and the Order of the Black Sun, the Osiris Club, and all of the crazy people that are on that side. The fight between the two is in full swing. It is very clear right now that the Trump operatives are going for political control, and they have some new ideas, which are not new. They've already been done and tried before, of assets control. By assets, they're looking for things like in-ground assets around the world, and that's already started to hit mainstream media. And we'll talk about that too in just a minute. But that's what seems to be going on. They seem to be following around in the dragon family, or in this case, the Chinese dragon family, as footsteps around the world, pushing for assets in Africa and other places that China has previously leaned, or tried to lean, I should say. Now, the fight between the two really is for all of the 5 power centers in the world. And if you've been following for a while, you'll know that that's the financial, the media, the military and intelligence, and political sectors. If they can manage to gain control over all those sectors, they feel that they will then be in control of the world. And they're still fighting the wrong enemy. And what I mean by that is that the dragon family really doesn't control anything either. And for that, we're going to talk a little bit about how the world really worked and had worked for a long time. Now, many of you know I had a lot of conversations over the course of a couple of years with a being that actually, for the most part, you could say he was the manager of this planet, as Marduk. And Marduk taught me a lot. I should say inadvertently taught me a lot, because it was more about watching him work, watching the things he would do, paying attention to all of his operations that were logged into the system, or the alpha system, and every step that he had made over the course of thousands of years were quite evident to me. And that taught me a lot of strategy and moves that he would make. And one of the things he said to me was always remain relevant, meaning if there was going to be an operation or orders or a change on Earth or anything that would happen in the world, he would always be able to pull the final string, push the final button. Without him, the plan would never work. So whether he wanted to make something happen or didn't want to make something happen, ultimately the end decision was with him. And, I've thought a lot about that over the years, and I'm thinking, well, ultimately where we're going is a world where people are sovereign and to some degree self-governing. And that's our end goal. It's going to take us some time to get there. We have 8 billion people, and not everybody really knows what's going on in the world. And it's going to take time to help society grow and learn. And I've said that many times, and that a lot of you that are listening to this are going to be partially responsible for this, because it's going to take a team of people to make this happen. Now, knowing this about Marduk and knowing how he structured everything, there are more than one matrix in this world. There is more than one, or was more than one matrix in this world. And what I mean by that is you are familiar with several different processes, both physically, mentally, emotionally. I should say more than both, physically, mentally, emotionally, that were controlled by AI systems in the past. You are aware of how they manipulate your genetic makeup, and how sometimes even the deep state, so to speak, participated in that mind control and other programs. But mainly we lived in a system that was designed for our enslavement. I mean, that's pretty well, everybody pretty well knows that. And what we're trying to do is have us kind of come out of that and teach others how to come out of that. And what I mean by that is that, the difficult parts are being done. The AI systems are pretty well breaking down. There is some backlash that we've been getting over the last couple of months due to that. Physically, emotionally, mentally, it's definitely hitting us a little hard from time to time. And hopefully for all of you, it doesn't last that long. But when you take it out, it fights you back. It's like a dying animal in a corner. It will scream, it will yell, it will send out frequencies. It does a lot of different things just to stay alive or stay relevant. And that's well over 200 different AIs, and they all do different things. So I would say that, we've definitely had a rocky road of things. But there's a second matrix, second set, I should say, of matrices in the world, and those were specifically made for the societies that reported, pretty much all of them at one point in time, to Marduk. And both, it didn't matter if you were a part of the Black Sun and you might have been tied in with the Abraxas a little bit more. It's kind of all the same group. So the group of the Seal people of the Seal, which means that those that signed the agreement to control Earth together in all of Earth's assets, including you as a human as an asset, all pretty much worked hand in hand. I mean, there was definitely an agreement, and there was some measures put in place if any one of those folks violated that agreement. And not all of those people, or none of those people, were actually human. Now we have some humans. And the thing that they fail to realize on both sides of the coin here, whether you're with the Illuminati, the dragon families, or that downline, or you're with the Order of the Black Sun and you're with that downline, that being like the Vatican, black nobility on that side, Trump operatives, Republican Party, the Tang family, the mafias, the Silent Circle, the Anti-Silent Circle. There's so many. There's the Osiris Club now, people thinking that they're the Osiris Club. Doesn't matter which side you are on. If you are the SSP, you are also involved in what I call the second matrix, or matrices that were created for you. We lived a different aspect of that, but as the quote unquote human management crew, they also were living in a box. And I know to them right now, because we don't have alien races coming to help them, we don't have alien AIs that are functioning properly to help them, we don't have a lot of the tools that they are used to utilizing to some lesser degree to build programs and currencies. They seem to have forgotten, or because they were so low down the food chain, they maybe never knew that they also lived in a matrix that was created for them. Maybe they didn't understand that those that have passed on didn't actually have control either, or 100% control. And maybe they are under the impression if they just get rid of the other sector of humans, doesn't matter which side you're on, that they could then be in control. And the systems weren't really designed that way. You see, things I learned from Marduk over the few years that we were talking for hours and hours and hours a day, they didn't like humans. Marduk, Enki, and Enlil actually hated human beings. One time I had mentioned to them they were going to run an operation that could have been very detrimental to humans. And because I held a seat due to the alpha system, you could say I voted against them, a lot. And they said, I said, I like humans. And they said, well, yeah, we know. And they kind of laughed at me. And they laughed because they don't really like humans either. That meant they don't even like their own people, meaning the people that they call their bloodline families, that feel that they are the elites of this planet. Therefore, they always made sure to keep all of them in line. And that even includes the semi-non-humans we call the parents. So, that being said, Let's talk about matrices and systems of the elite. The systems that were created for the elite were clearly created to control their every move. The impression that people have that are left, be it the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon or Langley or the secret space program operatives or the Chinese deep state or the Rothschilds, they're under the impression that the money would just come on these specific dates of the year. The AIs would do what they want them to do because the AIs did what those that came before them did. Now, that is incorrect. These AI systems that they are talking about are the dark side of the AI, and they always gave them orders and instructions down to a T of things that they needed to do in order to achieve the goal of receiving money on specific days. The next big day for that money is on the 15th of January, because before, the Order of the Black Sun would receive big payouts and orders and instructions on that day. Now, they didn't come to the people that we have left. They came to the covens and coven masters, and the coven masters would go to specific places and messages would come in through the AI, and then orders would come on down the food chain. Now, the people that are left are under the impression that they were subservient to those that received the money and the orders. Therefore, they had to follow whatever they said. But, there's the whole second oath, and, you take that oath to your country, whichever country you're in, and you also take an oath to the Luciferians or the Mardukians or whichever sector you reported to, they know they take a second oath, 100%. But now that they feel that those people they allegedly took the second oath to are not here, they think they have the right to get the money and then do whatever they want. And that was never, ever, ever the case, because they too lived in a matrix. Now, within a matrix, you also have various systems. And by systems, I'm not talking about necessarily AI systems. I'm talking about societal structures. Now, we as humans, the rest of us that live on this planet, also have societal structures that we have lived in, meaning the amount of hours in a work week is structured. The paying taxes is a structure. The way that they give you money in exchange for all your energy, we call work, and then they take it all back in the form of taxes or buying things from their corporations. That's a system. Our healthcare system is not meant for our health. We know this. We know a lot of these things, but these are systems that were created for the majority of the population of this planet to exist in so that they can control us. If they can't control us through the food we eat, that we need to survive because of our genetic modifications. We didn't actually need food as humans like we see now. There are a lot of changes to our genetic makeup, as you know. But these systems were in place for us. So, let's call them slavery systems. We know there are many, many types of slavery systems. And if you look at your life and you start to really break down in detail all of the things that were created for us, our educational system, there's nothing in our life that is not a system, if you really take a look at it. Now, for the elite, they are under the impression that they are outside of the matrix. And this is actually has been said from their lips to my ears in face-to-face conversations. We are not part of that system, they say. But that is absolutely false. And I'll tell you why. Number one, they all go through programming. They go to summer camps as kids. They learn specific trades, whatever their specialty is. They go through rounds of testing to figure out what they're going to be skilled at, and then they go into those programs. There's a lot of training. There is a lot of programming for them as well, so they don't break out of the system. Otherwise, we wouldn't have operatives taking their phone call consistently, waiting for a paycheck, because no human in the world would sit there and wait since 2007 for a currency revaluation or a paycheck. Or would they have taken dinar or Bitcoin or anything else in payment or this new e-money scam? That's the latest and greatest. And, next it's rainbow dollars and US, coins and dodgy coins and whatever else they're trying to sell these people these days. No one in their right mind would continue to work if you were not getting a paycheck. Now, on our level of human, if we worked for a company and they were, let's just say, a fairly decently sized company, and they couldn't pay you anymore, the company would go bankrupt. They would let people go so they could go find another job where they could get paid, because we have a human aspect that actually cares about people. If the company fails, that's what we do. If you are part of the secret space program, Trump operatives, dragon families, and everybody else that's fighting for control, they haven't paid these people properly in years. I mean, years, with the small exception of 2012 when I transferred money into the system, 2018 when I transferred money into the system, and a couple times after that in 2019 during the old Trump administration. And in 2018, that was to every country in the world. Now, I've since stopped doing that because this is getting me nowhere. This is getting us as humanity nowhere. So I had to rethink and re-strategize around these crazy people because, they're never going to stop doing what they're doing. Now, as for the people that are, let's just say, down the food chain from those going for world domination, they have not left because of that second oath. They still pick up the phone call on every time there's a payday, and they're being sold loads of sunshine about, when the new administration comes in. God, I hear that worldwide 100 times a day. When Trump gets back into office, you'll see. We're going to pay for that pipeline. We need your support. We need you to do the war in Israel. We need you to do this. We need you to do that, during this time. And then, of course, the military and the U.S. military and everybody gets involved, and it's a giant mess. Even our military was told by them to wear skirts and dance around a fire, and they did it. They did it. And again, this is their matrix. This is their programming. They live in a different matrix than the rest of us humans. It's a programming. It's mind control. They have the same kind of mind control that we have, just for a different purpose and a different outcome. The next thing that Marduk did, which is really critical for these people to understand and for you to understand. So when you see upticks in things going on in the world, you can assume that they're making another promise based on former paydays of the past, alignments with Uranus, doorways that are supposed to open on certain days, because this is what the documents that they stole from the covens say. Now, the covens' job, when they were around, and we still have some people dabbling in the black magic thing. It doesn't really work like it did before, but they still kind of dabble. So we're not like completely out of black magic people on this planet, that's for sure. But the things that they used to do, or their people that used to run those areas of the world, don't function anymore. And that's really, really clear. And that trickles down to the lower end in the operative section as an example, and to why they're promised that they're going to get paid for something and then it doesn't happen. And then they pick a new date out of their handbook, I guess. But the thing on both sides that is abundantly clear is that they both lived in a system, one that they didn't understand. Now, let's talk about the plans, because both sides do have plans. They have big plans. The dragon family side has been told in the past, and I'm going to say they were told, whether that came through their family master or coven or the parents or whoever told them back in the 1970s, that it was going to be time for a shift of power. And that time was supposed to be a year ago. Now, it didn't happen yet, but they're still trying to make it happen because they believe if they make it happen, then the money will just come flying out. Now, again, I'm going to repeat, Marduk never gave an order or an instruction that he couldn't pull the plug on at any given moment in time, or that he couldn't restructure at any time. Every year is a new year. They can restructure all those orders and instructions. And they know one thing. Maybe they don't even know why they're doing it. I don't know. But Marduk understood humanity. There were many, many satellites that would monitor human behavior, belief systems, religions, government structures such as democracy and communism, and which ones work, which ones don't work. And the one thing that they knew about humans, if you are going to have a centralized location on Earth, known as countries, that have the majority world power, meaning, they say that the President of the United States was the leader of the free world. Well, I don't know how free anything is, but throughout history, for hundreds of years, there has been a centralized control nation or kingdom or area that has controlled the entire world. Now, that makes it easy. You typically have centralized currencies now, you have centralized banking systems, centralized political systems, centralized intelligence and military systems. You have centralized all 5 main factors you need to control the world. That was done by design. But what ends up happening is somewhere between 60 to 75 years of dominating of that country, whatever, insert country name here, because you can go all the way back to Caesar and see that this is true. The people start realizing that they are the bad people because of the things they do. They come in like UK did. You plant ghost flags all over the place. You start enforcing your customs, your rules, your financial systems, your banks, your this, your that. And now America has done it. Now we're at that point in time where all of humanity is looking at America and the Federal Reserve and various presidents over the last few decades, and they're starting to say America is evil. So it's time for a change. Now, this is the good cop, bad cop game. This is on the dragon side. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with anything that's going on, but this is just human nature. So now it's time to transfer that power center, and it was decided that that new power center was supposed to be China, which is why the elites of China are doing the thing. They've gone throughout all of Africa. They've gone through all of Latin America. They've taken over key financial pinch points around the world, and they've tried to establish themselves as the world power ripe for takeover as America is supposed to fall. And for those of you that have been around for a long time or are well read, you'll see that when there was a change from Great Britain to the United States being the centralized world power, that there was a 10-year depression. Britain kind of fell after the war. There was definitely a transition that takes place, and it's a cookie cutter process that everyone is trying to follow, and it's not working. It's not working because Marduk, who is no longer with us, did not push the buttons. He has not been here to push the buttons. Now, the buttons that I'm referring to are financial buttons in part. media buttons, orders and instructions on how to get the masses to understand that America's the bad guy, China's the good guy. This is what the whole world needed to understand. So there's also a political changes. You make the president look like an idiot. We've all seen that, the president of the United States, I'm meaning, he's walking around dementia, getting lost, on the White House grounds. You name it, we've all seen it. Point taken. So you can see this is the elite attempted game on the Dragon family side. And they're still hoping that that money is supposed to come out. There's going to be plenty of funding to do this world domination thing. The world will probably switch to the RMB. You can see that BRICS is trying to move away from the dollar. They keep going through this process. They've tried to come up with new currencies, cryptocurrencies, because that was also part of the social crediting plan in conjunction with something called Skynet. Where the whole world moves to digital and everything you do is all monitored. It all is anyway, but, we go to a much tighter slavery system for the masses. And the Dragon families of the world do not have the entire plan. Guaranteed, they do not. They have pages from the book, but they don't have the entire plan, which is why everything kind of haphazardly starts to move along. And then it's like, why didn't the thing happen? Why, we did all our parts. We've got the book, we've got all the plans, they think, but they don't. And why did it not work? It's kind of like watching YouTube videos, going to what I call, a friend of mine calls anyway, which I've now taken on, YouTube University to do things. Now, the people of YouTube University, those are the people that fix cars and allegedly install parts here and fix your refrigerator and just 10 easy steps and just watch all my YouTube videos and I'll show you how to grow that grass or paint that house or do whatever, make this recipe. And inevitably, you try it yourself and you follow it to like the letter and it just doesn't work for some reason. Or maybe sometimes it does. But in these people's cases, they only watched part of the video. Maybe they watched the first few minutes, something in the middle, and then perhaps the end outcome is your refrigerator is fixed. But they didn't watch all the parts in between because they don't have all the parts in between. All those parts were left up to the parents, the Coven Masters. And in this case, Marduk with the final key. So it's great to tell somebody how to fix your refrigerator on YouTube, but if that part's not available or that tool doesn't exist, then the refrigerator's never going to get fixed no matter how many times you watch the video. So they go back through all the papers and go back through all the papers and they don't understand why it's not working. Now, it's not going to work and it's never going to work, and I know that for a fact because Marduk is not here, and I have the keys now on that level of this planet, which means that as ground commander, I can do certain things, and I stop your wars, and I stop your funding, and I stop all the things that they need to be successful, because I have all the rest of the plan. And I think that this is not what we want to do. Is switching from the right hand to the left hand. It's the same people. China's been deeply embedded in the American government now for years, mainly the Democratic Party. They've bought a lot of property here. They've bought a lot of property around the world. They've gotten to the point basically where they've gone broke doing all of these things. They try to create new currencies. They've cornered Russia, and basically without China right now, Russia's not going to make it. And, all of the BRICS countries, they all join, then they all walk away, and they all join and they all walk away because they know the end outcome. They're sold, like you're buying a used car, the end outcome, and then the end outcome doesn't work. Why don't the countries walk away? Well, it's very simple. It's that second oath, and they're all part of it. There's not a U.S. president, including the incoming one and the outgoing one, that did not go to Bohemian Grove and did not, for lack of a better term, get on their knees for someone else, usually another male. And it's a show of power. There's a lot of different things they do to show power over people we see in the public as our quote unquote leaders. So that's why you don't see countries really walking away. There's chatter on the internet, coming from the Trump side of it. And we're going to get to those people here in a minute too. But there's a lot of chatter on the internet like McAfee, and we've got the Fulcrum, and we've got the files and all that. Well, nobody is going to care. You could publicly defame on mainstream media and CNN and Fox News and every other main news channel in the world, insert name here, and life is going to continue exactly the way it is. So the blackmailing of political operatives using things like the Universal Trust and other things are not going to work when it's the entire world. And it's that second oath, kids. However, the reason why they take the second oath is irrelevant now. The fact that everybody's being subservient to either side is ridiculous because there is no consequence anymore. All it really is your programming. Walk away. I look at this as, we all had bullies in our schools and stuff as kids. And, as you get older, depending on where you grew up and what country you're living in, there are some of us, including myself, that, probably ran into my first gun at about the age of, maybe 11 years old, 10, 11. It was about middle school. And, that bully, you've seen them pull the trigger. And you've seen the bullets fly out, the gun, you've seen people get shot, you've seen people bleed, from a young age, depending on where you are. And so that the gun situation that's being held by insert gang name here or whoever it is very real. However, there comes a point in time where maybe they haven't shot that gun in a while, but they're still waving it around. And you kind of start to wonder, are there any actual bullets in it? And, does anybody actually want to test the fact that there's any bullets in it? So, that's kind of the point at where everybody's sort of at when you go into their downline. It's like you say the gun's loaded, you give me the threat if I threaten to walk away, but is it really loaded anymore? And who's going to have the guts, so to speak, to look at these people and go, okay, go ahead, fine. I'm walking away. You want to shoot me in my back? Shoot me in my back. Is anybody ready to do that? Is the threat really real? There are people in safe houses all over the world right now that have tried to walk away and that have remained safe. So they are safe. So are they going to do it? I don't know. We're getting pretty close to that, area, so to speak. Now, let's talk about the Trump side, or the Order of the Black Sun side, Black Dragon side. This encompasses all your militaries, and this is why they say it's the military is going to save us, and by militaries, I'm assuming they mean the secret space program military operatives, because they're kind of trying really hard, God bless them, to keep everybody in line, meaning keep the Pentagon in line, and so far they've proven quite loyal. It's not just the Pentagon, it's GCHQ, it's GHQ, it's the militaries and intelligence agencies throughout the Middle East, it's the Mossad, it's the Russians, it's the old KGB and the new SVR, it's the, in some cases, you could even say in part the Chinese Politburo, the military there. So there's, Japan. Japan's in deep, 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 deep. South Korea's in deep, 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 deep right now with these people. And they're switching out political control in countries and doing the thing that they've always done. But again, things they don't understand. The plans that they have, the part of the plan, trust the plan, right, is still a partial plan. And the dragon family doesn't have the rest of the plan, and you can go searching deep in the depths of alignments with Uranus and the black magic workers and all those people, and they don't have the plan. They don't. They don't have the end trigger, which is why every time there's an alignment with Uranus, New Year's Eve, a full moon, a black moon, a new moon, a cold moon, a blue moon, insert day here that would normally be a black magic high day, which coincides with the days that operatives and everyone else is supposed to get paid. It just doesn't happen. It's not happening on either side. There are rumors about golden parachutes being promised to the Canadian president, which I know for a fact actually haven't happened. They started some rumors in the last 48 hours amongst Wall Street where, the dollar is going to crash and you need to run to bonds. And so, of course, everybody buys treasury notes. And so they might have got a little bit of money from that. It's all a scam. Nobody's going to crash anything really unless they got the rest of the plan. There's that pinch point that happens when, you've got pages 1 through 10 and then the book starts on page 15. So those few pages in between are critical to your success, and you don't have them. I've seen them. I know what I'm supposed to quote unquote do if I were Mardukish, but I'm not. So I'm not really going to go along with your plan. So my role would have been pages 11 through pages 14 to then let you get to page 15 through 22. And then I would still have to do page 22 to 25 as an example of the plan. And I'm not doing that. I'm not taking a part in your mess. So I know you're only going to get to a certain point consistently, and then you're going to get stuck, which has proven to be correct since I've stopped funding anyone. I've stopped even letting any money trickle into the system. I've stopped looking at banks like we're going to get some cooperation there. Banks are on the one side, of course, the Black Sun's trying to take all those over too, and they think that if they take over what they seem to believe is control of the planet, that the plan will finally work. And it just doesn't. They can scrape the bottom of the barrel. You can empty the change jar. You might call the U.S. Mint. You can do all the things you need to do to just get to the next day, the next week, the next new moon, the next time your black magic workers tell you is a perfect alignment for an AI to spit out money. Well, honey, I got news for you, sweetheart. I am not an AI system, and I don't just spit out money because your cowboy booty told me to. I almost said the bad word. Okay, so that is why I know they're not going to make it. And it's just a matter of time, and data and analytics will tell you that before they both sides figure this out. They lived in a system unto their own, the elite system of the planet, which isn't too far off from our system. Yes, they had privileges. They were handed corporations that constantly required money to exist. You see, a business plan is a business plan, and most of you listening to this have a business plan. If you have a business, you have a business plan. If you own, it could be anything from a farm to a company that manufactures widgets and whatever, or you own a little small store or a shop, you have a business plan. Even if you have a booth at the farmer's market in your country, in the middle of Africa somewhere, you have a business plan. Whether, maybe you didn't write it all down or anything like that, but that if you grow the tomatoes, that you have a consistent customer base that loves your tomatoes and that will consistently buy those tomatoes from you. And if you buy X amount of seeds, you're going to grow approximately X amount of tomatoes. Therefore, you're going to be able to sell X amount of tomatoes at an increased cost over your cost of seeds and water and all the other things. I mean, it's very simple, on that level. But all of you have a plan. You have a financial plan even for your household. I go to work every day. I make X amount of dollars per hour. That means I can afford this house, this car, or I'm retired and I receive X amount of retirement pay. So that means I can afford this and I can afford that. And I'm not going to buy something that's outside that range. Typically, you don't, because that come next month, you're not going to have the house. You're not going to have the car. Your kids aren't going to be able to afford college or wherever it is you're at in life. So we all have some sort of a business plan. Now, if your business plan involved a business that requires a constant influx of money every year, significant amounts to stay running because your business plan is bad and you constantly overspend, and if that money doesn't come in, you're in trouble. And this is the case with a lot of large corporations, including the military industrial complex of the planet, because it's one complex. So same thing with governments. Governments don't make anything. They don't sell anything. You could say the Federal Reserve sells dollars, and they do sell currencies, and then it costs us money, when we need to exchange or travel and go from one currency to another currency, it costs us money. So they do sell dollars, but really governments worldwide don't sell anything. They do collect taxes, but 80% of that goes out the window to the elite to feed their own matrix. And usually there would be some trade platforms with your taxes, and it would be doubled, tripled, 100 times, and then they would use some of that money to feed their corporations. But still, it requires that influx of cash on a day ending in Y annually to keep it functioning and running. Now, that has not happened since 2019. That was the last time it actually happened. So they've been robbing Peter to pay Paul this whole time to keep things running. And there is a hope, and why they hope this, I don't know, but missing pages in your plan book, which both sides have, is still missing pages. And for some reason, they don't want to let go of the thought process that if we just do the rest of the pages that we actually have of the playbook, that the rest of the pieces will automatically fill in because it was automatic. Well, it was never automatic. There was always someone, human or otherwise, that pushed the buttons for those pages in between that you don't see. So this appears to be their plight at the moment. And it's causing, let's just say that it's causing some issues around here for sure. There are comments that are being made like, they call me B words and other 4-letter words, and you just need to do what you're supposed to do. Well, I'm not supposed to do anything, see, because I don't operate in either one of those matrices. I do what I need to do to as far as, existing as a regular human, because I can't give them an in, so to speak, that cause me problems. But on the other side of things, I'm not a part of your system. You see, I'm creating a system outside your system because I can see that your business plan is a flawed model. And unless I continuously feed it over there, it's going to die, because that's the business model. It was designed to enslave the enslavers. Let that sink in for a second, because Marduk enslaved the enslavers, or the slave masters, as we call the remaining humans that are still fighting for this world domination thing. So his job was to keep everybody in line, and that includes his own people. So he created these systems. Now, he created them. Don't think for 1 second the elite created them, because they didn't. He created these systems for them and for us. And he needed to make sure that none of us, including the secret space program people, the where we go one, we go all people, and the dragon people, and all of their downlines, that they would never be free of him. And he would laugh about it. He would tell them lies, he would keep them in line, but at the end of the day, he didn't care what he told those people, because he pushes the buttons. Without those pages in between and him doing his part, it doesn't work. It simply will not work. They will never break free of his system. And both sides are trying to maintain his system. We, on the other hand, took a look at that and said, no, I don't think we want to do that. And we are now working together, myself and everyone listening to this, to create a new system, one that is not full of codependency, one that is interdependent. And it's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of re-education and a lot of learning on our part, and a lot of teaching on our part to make that happen. But it can happen. The people that are trying to maintain a current system, it'll fall. It's going to fall. They will not continue. Now, some of the people in the Duck Dynasty showed up here today. Actually showed up here last night. We had global headquarters here last night looking for answers. They also were looking to test me. They took some pages out of what appears to be their Stargate, Project Stargate. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. You can look it up. And they were trying to figure out how I do what I do. How do I know they're coming? How do I protect myself? Is it the local people here that protect me? And if it wasn't for the local people, would I still be able to protect myself? So if they took me out of here or forced me out of here in some way, would I still survive, and would I still be able to protect myself? Well, they found out last night that the answer is yes. Okay, well, good. Congratulations. Now that's not an option for you. Can we control the golden goose? No, you can't. You won't make it that far. Now, today it's the SSP. So the cowboys, as I call them, the cowboys rocked up here, boots and hat wearing, and said, okay, boys, and this is talking to the local people, and said, okay, we got this. We're taking over now. We're doing the thing. And after a couple hours of having what I call chatting, coffee chatting, they told them that they'd just like to meet with me, sit down with me, and, it's not really working out. And so then they tried to get information from them. Now, you remember me talking, it was probably a year ago this past summer, where we did have some local people that were tasked, along with some others, with coming up with a plan to fix the U.S. government. And or fix the Treasury, fix the U.S. government, and how I worked into that plan. That's what they told them anyway. So they worked for a few weeks, and they came up with some really good ideas. And I told all of you that the ideas that they came up with would actually function to eventually make the U.S. government independent of me. And I'm like, well, at the time, we hadn't quite given up on that program, but it made sense to me. Now, you have taken a failing business and you have figured out a way over time to make it independent. It would probably take a few years and a lot of funding to make it happen, but you could make it work. And they proved that because I listened to the whole thing. So the SSP now would like to have a copy of their plan. And I do hope that they gave them plenty of 4-letter words back, because Again, nobody's paying anybody. It's kind of the time, or we're getting to that point where the people who would want to be elites of the planet, stop feeding on all of us, meaning all of humanity. Think about it. I mean, and the operatives here are no different, honestly, when it comes to feeding off their brain. As for the rest of us, think of all the inventions, think of all the cures, think of all of the amazing engines that don't run on oil and petrol. Think about the things that we have created as humanity, and these technologies are not available, or those people disappear. You know, it's time for them to stop trying to maintain a system that doesn't work. Really, it is. If they don't want to do that, that's okay. It's going to die anyway. And then the rest of us, the thinkers of the world, are going to make the world function together. That's what we're going to do. Now, some people aren't going to participate, and they're still going to wait for that phone call, as long as those people are still living, I guess. And hopefully because of that second oath, but maybe they'll figure out once one jumps, the gun's not loaded anymore. There's not much they can do to you. They can't do anything to you. Logic and reason tells you that. So right now, some people are kind of what you would want to say on the fence. You know, they're starting to say, I'm not getting paid. It's going to cost money to make that happen. I can't do it for you. You know, if you can pay me, I'll do it. You know, and then they get on the phone every week or whatever it is, day ending in Y. And, you know, they hang up the phone, and just as they expected, a lot of them. Some of them get angry. There was people around here that were angry as well. So anyway, that's what's pretty much going on as far as the deep state is concerned, and their failure to understand they lived in a system and a matrix just like the rest of us, albeit a little bit different. Now, without the end result of participation of myself at this point, because there's nobody else up here, that's it. You can clock it with an egg timer. They're not going to be able to fix it. Even if they stole all the information from the local people around here that came up with a plan, you're still not going to be able to fix it without me, because there's nobody else with all that kind of hundreds of trillions of dollars to fix it, set it right, and put it on a different course. And you're talking hundreds of trillions of dollars here. And new currencies are not going to fix it. And burning California to the ground and trying to take control over lands you don't control, or you think you don't control, that have already been leveraged, is not going to do it for you. Declaring a national state of emergency and promises of federal funding that'll never come is not going to do it for you. You'll see. You're going to end up in the same position today that you will be in 3 weeks from now and 4 years from now, if that you survived that long. You know, it's the same thing with all these countries. Everybody's got to figure out the gun's not loaded and you're not subservient to these people anymore. Eventually, someone will jump and it will happen. You know, until then, we're still watching Idiocracy on television. And by Idiocracy, I mean they're continuing the quest of what they believe is a global takeover. Okay, let's talk about global takeover. Number one, because we made public the information about the attempt that they planned on doing with the Carter funeral tomorrow, it doesn't look like as of this moment. Now, remember, Duck Dynasty are kind of like 12-year-old schoolgirls. You never know what they're going to do. And we're still mindfully watching what's happening over there, because they did want to possibly use this to a fake terrorist attack, a false flag attack, in order to push off the inauguration or make it private. As you know, the inauguration, there are two of them. Number one is the one where they put the hand on the book, whatever their chosen book is, and they say the oath in front on public television. That's for all of you. The other oath that they take is that second oath I keep talking about, which all of them have done. Trump is no exception. He also took the second oath. He took another oath long before that, too. Okay. But the quest for world domination continues. Here are the latest and greatest from Duck Dynasty, we know as the Trump operatives. Number one, they would like to take over Greenland. That has become public. It is now in the news. Why Greenland? Well, there was a lot of space junk in Greenland for a long time. There were jump rooms in Greenland. There is a lot of talk. If you've never seen the television show 0 Hour, there was only one season of it. It's pretty quick. But they do talk about a Nazi camp in Greenland, which technically is the Black Sun anyway. There is a big base there. It used to be called Thule Base. Thule Society, anyone? But now they renamed it some weird name and called it the United States SSP Base. Space Program Base. Well, Freudian slip there. They would like to control things that are no longer there because they used to have communication with the tall whites there. They don't anymore. Those folks are not taking their call. The last time Trump was in Greenland was when he allegedly caught COVID when he was in office, and it was me that answered that phone in Greenland, if you remember that. So that's why they'd like Greenland. Also, there's some minerals and other things there they'd like to own, of course. Now, Greenland is currently a territory of Denmark. I don't see that changing anytime soon, so that's a lofty goal. Again, they're looking for in-ground assets, things that they believe are not leveraged, but I can tell you with 100% certainty, and I can prove it to you, should you need me to send this information to the diplomatic line somewhere, that we hold that lien. We hold the lien on everything there. Next, they would also like to take over the Panama Canal. This is where the matrix comes in, the elite matrix. Now, allegedly, on the record, they believe that the Rothschild family built and owned the Panama Canal, created 5 ancillary families in Panama that actually run Panama. And including the canal, and all of them profit from the canal. Well, the thing that you're missing here, guys, is that, well, I have a $1.72 trillion lien against the Panama Canal. Therefore, Rothschild never actually paid us back, that would be the Alpha system, for the building of the Panama Canal. And that was a long time ago. That was a lot of money there. Cost to build that canal. You ever wonder why it still looks like it did way when it was built? Why there's never been a renovation there? Wonder why. The second thing that people are discussing behind the scenes, which hasn't been made public yet, I think there was a little bit of chatter in mainstream media about this, is the isthmus in Mexico. The isthmus is a small part of land which there has been many proposals over the years of building a second canal. They are claiming that there's controversy about it. Like I said, a little bit of that's hit the news. It's been talked about behind the scenes. But you also gave me that lien. The thing that the Trump operatives are forgetting is, America's been at the world leadership position for quite some time now, UK before them, and so on and so forth. And as you take that world leadership position, your job is to go claim territories and claim large infrastructure projects and pinch points, which the Panama Canal would be considered a pinch point in shipping. And movement of goods and services, imports and exports throughout the world. Suez Canal being another one. We saw what happened there not that long ago. So what they forget is that every bit of this, even when the U.S. military, say, staked a claim against oil, for example, in a country, many countries, and that was a plan that Dick Cheney had part of, and it is presented to you in part in the movie Vice. But when they place these liens, plant these ghost flags, there is a bond usually or some kind of a lien that is then passed eventually to the Alpha system, which I have. So the money comes out to build said canal, for example. And we have all those liens still, and I retained those liens even in the Golden Age AI system just in case this happened. So every time they try to enter this as their property, it rejects it. It's going to reject it for California. It's going to reject it for, just like it rejected Paradise, California, all that time ago. The Carolinas, same thing. You're not planting a new ghost flag in any of these locations, and you will not be successful in your quest to control the pinch point. Are you going to take over control from China, who took over control from the Rothschilds, which are the same people? Again, they're just following what parts of the plan they had, because no longer is it Britain. And then, of course, Rothschild still pretty much Ital, names. Let's call it the Blue Dragon. The Blue Dragon had a strong foothold on America in many different ways. Federal Reserve Board, and so on and so forth. So you would say they still could maintained their family's control of the current world power center, even after the transition from UK to the US. Now, over the last several years, they've been following the playbook, or at least the portion of it that they had, and turned over their control of the Panama Canal to China, because the transition from one family to another was supposed to take place. They're all just as evil as one or the other, and that's the only reason why they have it. Not a lot of money changed hands. This is the way that it's kind of worked. The local families there that are the caretakers were notified, and so it was. China controls the Panama Canal. Trump operatives coming in and taking control isn't still going to yield them the end result that they're looking for, and it didn't yield China the end result that they're looking for. So China's got a whole lot of papers right now. And they've had those papers for over a decade, and I have watched this personally. They put papers against African countries. They got the help of Obama in a lot of cases. They took liens against all of the United States military equipment. Just in case you don't remember that lien still exists out there, and it's over there. You keep trying to register it to the Shanghai Exchange in exchange for money. Because there's used to be a line there that no longer exists as well, to Alpha, because I just keep rejecting all their requests. Same thing with Australia and Papua New Guinea and all the other places where China went around pulling liens. They even took over World Bank liens that the Rothschilds gladly gave them because it's part of the plan. Trump organization operatives, SSP, people doing the same thing and taking over them, they're just going to end up with a bunch of papers themselves and no money and no way to issue new money or put any kind of crypto in a system or anything else, because it's just not a possibility. Again, you're missing places out of your playbook, and you're trying to revive a system that requires your system requires my help. And I've known that. So I'm watching you, run around. I try to prevent you from killing as many people as possible. You do your rituals, just like you did in the Middle East, and still nothing happens for you. And we close the door and lock the doors to Syria. You're not getting anything from there, and no one's coming to help you from the Netherworld or anywhere else. And so I'm not really sure where they're going, but mark my words, it won't be long. I do not see this continuing much longer. Whether they decide to continue on their side, that's their problem. What we do on our side, very carefully and calculated and strategically speaking, is our job. Us planning for our future is our job. Us putting together a quote-unquote business plan for humanity that works is critical. And that is what our small little care team we've got over here is doing, and we're working on. But you need to think about systems. You need to think about all the systems, down to the last nail, down to the last grain of sand. You need to think about systems worldwide, in your country, in your area, and worldwide systems that we all have to deal with. How we're going to change that and how we're going to change the public perception. Because remember, media, in our case, we have UNN. At the moment, that's what we have. We have UNN. So you are the field messengers. You are the news. Don't forget that. You are the news for a reason. It is going to be your job to help these people understand. And you're going to have to spoon feed them. We cannot give them an entire bowl of the world was run by aliens in one day. You're not going to make that happen. You're going to have to get the little tiny spoons, the ones that you might have to eat your little gelato or something, the tiny little spoons. You're going to have to start pulling out those tiny little spoons and figure out, because it's your job as field messengers. It's your job to figure out how to pull out the little spoon and what the public is going to take and understand. And I know once you find something out, you get so excited, you want to tell your whole family that this is the way the world really works, and oh my God, and watch all these videos, and sometimes they're just not going to get it. But maybe let's try, we've got 8 billion people to educate, so a little spoon at a time, and we have plans to get UNN out there when all of this starts to take place too, to help you along. But again, if you're a field messenger and you've volunteered to help, then you're putting out that news yourself. That's your job. So, I do my part here in educating and giving you all the information, as much as I can give out publicly, based on strategies and operations that are ongoing. But just remember, ultimately, once we cross that line to the next steps of restoration, this is your job. This is not all of your job. There are other people that will be doing other things, but, we have to start taking personal responsibility for changing the world together. So, on that note, that is the GIA report for the 8th of January, 2025. I got to remember to say 2025. And I will see you on Friday, and we'll see how we progress.